Let's do it.
So we actually had Jarel's old bio in there, and I just wanted to introduce you because it's awesome to have you here today. And so Jarel, when we work with a client that has a complex set of challenges that we're looking to solve for, we bring in our dear friend Jarel, who is a dear friend, an expert fundraiser, and he's been a lifeline to our clients for many years now, both as a client himself, a partner, and a collaborator. He is the newest member of our strategic advisory board, which I don't know if you knew that.
Wow, news to me,
Just by
breaking news.
being here, you're now on our board. Isn't that unbelievable? And the benefit of having him, serve here at Utopia and of course here today during the webinar is that he's been in your position. As a former fundraiser, he managed 8-figure campaigns, and so he understands the complex challenges and opportunities that really exist in the fundraising world. So we're just really, really grateful that you're here joining us today.
Excited to be here.
Okay, so we're gonna do everything today from high-level strategies all the way down into nitty-gritty tactics. And so you might be here because you're a nonprofit CEO and you're trying to figure out how to create more sustainable and impactful event experiences. Maybe you've struggled in the past. Maybe you're the head of fundraising, a director of development, and you're needing some impactful ideas on how to up your game and create more meaningful relationships with your donors. Or maybe you're here today and you're really looking for how to up-level the real impact of your event experiences overall. Or last but not least, perhaps you're here today because you've seen virtual, you've seen hybrid, you've seen live, and you're just looking for actionable strategies on how to rally people around your organization and your mission and your fundraisers. And we're gonna do our best to cover all of that today in 40 minutes. It's a lot to get to, but I'm just gonna talk really fast. I might become an auctioneer. I'm gonna talk really fast. And our last little housekeeping note is if you have questions for us and what we do at Utopia, please know we'll stay afterwards and answer any questions you have. And if you don't have questions, then we won't stay afterwards. But today's all about value, not a sales pitch. So we're gonna break down all of what I just mentioned above, really engendering more responses from prospective attendees, enrolling your board, up-leveling your real impact, and telling amazing stories that matter, and really creating memorable, different, and impactful event experiences. And we're gonna break that down into 3 simple action steps. Now, Jarel, with 40 minutes, we don't have time to get through our entire point of view here at Utopia and how we take our clients through our roadmap, which is what our clients have found really helpful. But we're gonna give you as much as we possibly can in a very condensed version. And I would highly encourage and invite everyone in the room to lean in. This is something that you might wanna pay attention to because following this, at least in our experience, is what has separated successful events from the rest. And we'll get to some stats later down the road. And the roadmap that we're about to lay out, our nonprofit clients have mentioned that this has been invaluable for them. And it's one of the many reasons why a lot of our nonprofit clients are lifers. Once they work with us, they don't leave us.
That's right.
And we don't leave them. All right, so pre-event. Let's start with pre-event. So we said 3 different phases: pre-event, during event, and post-event. Let's start with pre, or what we call internally the initiate phase. And so when we partner with a nonprofit, our planning team at Utopia starts by asking the most fundamentally important question. What are your most important outcomes and objectives for your event, and why? And a lot of times our nonprofit clients are focused on outcomes that are centered around what they would like to accomplish as the host, which is great to hear because it means that they're really dialed into what they want to do organizationally and what they need from a business development standpoint. But part of producing an event is having a rich picture of all of the sources of value available when you bring all different types of people together. So what do I mean when I say all different types of people, and what do I mean when we're talking about event objectives outside of the host, as you as the host? And I'm thinking about your attendee. What outcomes are important for your attendees? How do we get them from their pain to their joy? And a lot of times through talking to different groups, we're talking about that pain-joy bridge. How are we bridging the gap? And you are the bridge. So what are the outcomes for attendees? What are the outcomes for your board, for your committee, for their friends, sponsors and partners and stakeholders, presenters, strategic partners and vendors? And that really matters because if your attendees hit their goals, but you don't hit yours, it's really hard for an organization to continue without cash flow. And then on the other side, if we make this a home run for your sponsors, and I can give you some examples later on how we've done that, then those sponsors are gonna immediately renew and sign up for next year. And so that means you have more stability in your business. And so everything that we do, we're always thinking about every person that's touched by the ecosystem of your nonprofit. And so from there, once we outline what your objectives are and outcomes, we enroll your team and we divvy up responsibilities. And this is something that we're gonna talk about here in just a minute, is how do you enroll your team? And then divvy up responsibilities in the pre-planning efforts based on your team's strengths. And so, we really approach every partnership here, not assuming that there's anything broken that we're here to fix, but assuming that you probably have some things that are working, and maybe you have some things that are broken. That's true of our business, a lot of businesses. And so we just want to know, is there anything that's really explicit that's a strength? And double down on that. What have your customers told you is a strength of yours? And then we want to build on and from that in this particular event. And so it's really outlining those core strengths. And then from there, we start the design phase. And so once we've outlined the objectives for the event, which are your objectives, the host's objectives, your sponsor's objectives, so on and so forth, and we've identified strengths of your team, then we go into 4 pre-event strategies and we divide and conquer. And these are of critical importance. And they are, number 1, co-create with your people, because people give energy to things that they have the opportunity to create. So allow your team to be a part of brainstorming what might make this successful. Number 2 is connect with your board. So get outside the 4 walls and get creative. We recommend, getting out in nature. We can learn so much from just being out in nature, especially right now, at least here in the Midwest with the trees changing colors. It's absolutely beautiful. And we do something in our business called info sponging, which we ask a question, hey, to all of our staff and people here at Utopia, we're like, bring ideas that would put our old company out of business. That is our goal. Like, how do we continue to innovate and revolutionize how we think about business and adding value to people? And so maybe you can ask that to your board and just get outside the 4 walls and brainstorm with each other. Number 3 is invite people with thoughtfulness. And Jarel, you've got some stories there. And number 4 is know who you're inviting, know that audience. And so outlining and doing these 4 things thoughtfully on top of outlining your objectives as, host and attendees and sponsors and vendors, and then divvying up those responsibilities, you are already winning. Jarel, you shared a lot about inviting people with thoughtfulness and where nonprofits go wrong with the mass blast. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I noticed and one thing I learned very early in my career is that segmenting your donors is one of the most important things that you could ever do throughout your entire fundraising strategy. So the mass blast, as Joey said, that is just putting out one email to the entire group of people. Let's say that I have 10,000 emails that I am going to send out that are related to this upcoming event. The strategy changes depending on who I am talking to. So, I don't want to send the same email to someone who's never attended our event before to someone who's attended the event for the last 10 years. So really being thoughtful about how I engage people by segment and then creating thoughtful, mindful segments based on my event history, my organizational history, but then also their donor profile as well. You can take that into account.
So I'm curious, how do you understanding how important it is to build those relationships with individuals. We think about, a lot of nonprofits right now, at least from what we're hearing in our, coaching calls over the past couple of weeks, is a lot of our nonprofits are having some, I wouldn't necessarily say challenges, but opportunities around enrolling their board. They're thinking about how do we get our board more excited and what should our board's responsibility be during that pre-event process? Can you speak to that?
I'd say the board is the questions surrounding the board of directors. At every organization, I hear that question more than anything. So these calls, they track everything that's going on in the industry right now. So I think where a lot of organizations have room to grow is how they engage the board. How do they ask them what to do, what they are going to do, rather, how are they going to assign tasks? So you go wrong when you ask them to do everything. Yeah. So surely, they will do everything, but they'll do it at 20%. Instead, let's think about, the exact strengths and weaknesses of each individual board member. And if you don't, then maybe it's time to take a step back and do a board matrix, skills matrix, so you understand what unique skills and connections that each board member brings to your organization. So within that, you can then start to assign tasks. So Joey, if I know that you are strong, you have a great network, I'm going to lean on you to be part of the host committee So now you are putting out invitations directly to your network. We expect all board members to, but you are going to be the leader and show everybody else how it's done.
Right, absolutely. You know, and one of the things too on board enrollment is we actually utilize video a lot. You know, and it works quite well. And I want to give you an example. And we don't have time, and I'm trying, you know, we have a bunch of videos that are prepared, but we have a lot more to get to today because we want to fill you with as much value as we possibly can while we're here. And so we have all these videos. We actually, our marketing team put together a PDF of different videos and how you might look to utilize them. So Tracy, we can send the PDF over to you. Maybe you could send it out to the attendees afterwards, because it has these videos I'm about to explain, you know, throughout this program. One of them right now is an invitation video. We filmed for this organization a couple of weeks ago, a quick invitation video of all of their different recipients or clients, inviting people to come to the event. And then we sent that out via Greater Giving through a text message. And we put it on social media, and then we texted it to board members and said, hey, send this to your sphere of influence, your network, like you said, on the host committee. We sent all board members, send this to 10 to 15 people. And the event attendance was amazing because the board really got behind it, because the invitation was so authentic and meaningful because it came from the recipients, which is just a way there to be thinking outside the box on how can we get our recipients involved. And again, that comes back to rehumanizing business and just being authentic. I think sometimes we forget in business, whether you're in, you know, for-profit or nonprofit, that we're all just people, and, you know, we're all just looking for the same things: purpose and joy and appreciation and love, and to feel a sense of contribution and expansion. And so for me, and I know for you, it's really all about relationships. You know, sitting across from your prospective donors and or board members and asking them questions. And by doing that, you're getting a roadmap and insight into how they make decisions and what matters to them, and that's going to shape your future. I want to tell a quick story. About 8 months ago, my dear friend Terry left her position in an organization in Kansas City and joined another team. And she called me a bit upset, saying that the CEO on the new team that she had joined had a relationship with another event and video production company. And so she said, we've already signed our contract for 2021. I hope you can win Janet's business next year. And I'm really saddened that we don't get to work with you, right? And so just from the lens of curiosity and from a place of learning, I went online and I researched the CEO, Janet. I found a really personal story. She was out on the West Coast, and she came back home where she was born and raised to Kansas City to take over this organization when the CEO position became available, because her family had been involved in starting this nonprofit. And it meant a lot to her. And so I introduced myself via a video on my iPhone at 10 p.m. on a Thursday. And she sent me a video back at midnight that same night with tears in her eyes saying, Joey, I had to get out of my comfy jammies to record this video because I was so touched by your message that I couldn't not do this. And that CEO, Janet, runs the Kansas City Shepherd Center, and she's now one of our dearest friends. They ended up working with us in 2021. And, you know, by leading with our hearts, we opened up hers. By leading with our hearts, we opened up hers. And that all happened because, you know, I just took the time to record that personal video message for her and learn what mattered to her. And so I'd encourage you, when you're thinking about the PreEvent strategy, is what matters to your donors. You know, sit across the table from them and ask them those questions. Do the research. Send them a little off-the-cuff video. And I'm happy to share the video that I sent to Janet if you want just a little example. Send me an email afterwards, or maybe Tracy can share our information. I can send you some stuff. Be happy to. But you might want to consider asking them questions like, you know, why do you attend our events? Why do you give? What would inspire you to take massive action to be more involved? Why does our organization matter? What do you love about us? What would you love to see? And on the PDF that we're going to send out later, we have all these questions listed out if you want to just form your own versions, of course, but you can always use these as a jumping off point. So let's see. I think we jump into during event. Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get through this and make sure we get through all the content. But before we jump into during event, which is where I think a lot of you are going to be really excited about, you know, new technology and things that you can do to enhance the experience, I want to share a story of Bonnie. And Bonnie is someone who was online, and she was looking for organizations to give back to. she searched online and she came across one of our clients up in Chicago, Boys and Girls Club. And she was on a landing page for Boys and Girls Club. And she's looking on their website and she saw a 3D virtual walkthrough of their campus. She saw bullet points and statistics on how they're helping the community. And she saw a video that we produced that highlights their kids and families and how Boys and Girls Club is really making an impact. And then Bonnie gave $5,000 on the spot to Boys and Girls Club, having never interacted with them personally in the past. And the CEO, Drew, did something really profound here. A simple thing that cemented a forever relationship with Bonnie is he called her. And he asked her some of those questions I just shared with you. And he said, why'd you choose us, Bonnie? And she just gave him a bunch of different reasons, like, the video and the stats. And then he invited her to attend their gala with her partner, which is this past weekend. And she said, well, Drew, I can't attend. I don't live in Chicago anymore, but I want to give back to my community. But the gala was offered hybrid. So we sent her a link and she was able to jump in online and still participate with her partner. And the coolest thing is Drew and Boys and Girls Club exceeded their fundraising goal this past weekend by $200,000. And Bonnie was in attendance to support and to witness all of this, all because Drew picked up the phone in that PreEvent strategy and called her after that donation came in. And Drew follows this roadmap of what we're outlining today. So who are your Bonnies? Who's out there looking for you? The value of a donation in 2021 was down by 22%. I thought that was really interesting. The value of a donation is down, but the total number of donations across the United States is up by 110%. That's a stat from Forbes. And so there are more Bonnies out there now more than ever that are looking for you. And when they come across your website, your social media, or they convert on some call to action, we have to thoughtfully reach out to them, not just with a form letter, but with a personal touch point to engage them and enroll them in your ecosystem. Whew, that was a lot. All right, during event. The purpose of any event is to show people that they're making a difference. And so we did a focus group with hundreds of donors, and the top 2 reasons they decided not to come back and they end up at another nonprofit event is because number 1, they don't feel like they're making a difference because they don't know where the money's going. And number 2, they don't feel appreciated. So how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? What creates a great during event strategy? And we believe from our experience is human stories of impact, common purpose, moving your attendees from passive to active. So if they're not checking their emails on their phone because we're getting them engaged throughout the night, or if they're watching a stream, they're not checking their emails. So we want to get them engaged through different activities, and then nailing your tech and appreciating your attendees. And again, we don't have the time to get into this entire during event roadmap, so we're just going to share from our experience what you can do really to enhance the attendee outcome. And so first is human stories of impact, which is just videos, telling stories via video. 57% of people who see an effective nonprofit video go on to make a donation. And a few ways that we've utilized video in the past is really by seeing the experience of beneficiaries, like we explained earlier through that invitation video. And I was going to show it, but we're going to move past it, and we'll put it on the PDF and send it to you all afterwards. You're 53 times more likely to show up on the front page of Google if you have a 60 to 90 second video on your homepage. And there's certain other things that go into that, like SEO and metadata, that goes into ensuring you're on the front page, but that's a workshop and a conversation for a different day. So 3 different ways that you might want to consider utilizing video: an invitation video, which we talked about just a few minutes ago. Your fun to need video, which is the video that probably most of you are most familiar with, or your paddle raise, or your spotlight, or your fun the future. We've seen these videos do best when they're 5 minutes and when they answer these questions. Why do we do what we do? Which seems simple, but it's often overlooked because I think a lot of us want to talk about programs over impact, and we should start with impact first. Who do we serve and why? What does a donation provide for the recipients? How will supporting us impact the world? How will your donation actually create an impact and leave legacy? And that question's really profound and important right there because you're creating an impact loop by making them feel. So that's your fun to need video. And then you might want to consider doing a post-event thank you video from the recipients or from your clients, those that are benefiting directly from the services that you provide, and sending that out after the event to really close the impact loop. The second thing is red carpet entrance, which immediately identifies you as someone that's important, that's there, regardless of how little or big of a check that you're writing. And we have videos and pictures I keep mentioning the PDF, but it's all on there. And we'll send this out. The red carpet's on there, a couple videos of what that might look like. We've got, we put cameras on the red carpet and do a live stream into the main ballroom. And it's super cool because people just feel appreciated and special. And if you want to take the red carpet idea one step further, you could think about a top-tiered package with, maybe a limo that drives them to the event, or an Uber or driver with champagne, personal concierge members, which is just fancy ways of saying helpful volunteers that greet attendees at the door and shake hands. And you could think of those volunteers or concierge members as data collectors that are finding yeses throughout your event with people of interest. And so they're bringing those names to you so you can follow up with them after the event. Because you want to be spending time on people that are going to say yes to you as opposed to wasting your time on people that are going to say no. Another way to create a really impactful during event experience is really forming creative strategic partnerships. And Jarel, I want to bring you in for this one. I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot of talking here, and you have more value than me to add. I shared this event with Cancer Support Community. Do you remember this one with Palm Health?
Yes.
We briefly talked about it yesterday.
We did.
Okay, so Palm Health. One of our clients got really curious on which of the board members and attendees own businesses in the community. And lo and behold, there was a new up-and-coming health and wellness center in Clayton, Missouri that happened to be on their board, right? And so instead of having the event at a ballroom or a hotel, we hosted the event in the parking lot of Palm Health. And hundreds of attendees in person, hundreds of attendees online. And rather than just mentioning Palm Health in the program and on social media by maybe blasting their logo out on social media and putting it up on the projector screens the night of the event, we gave tours for in-person attendees and virtual attendees with cameras during the event. And people were blown away by this new health and wellness center that they didn't even know existed. And so we're trying to think about ways to identify and highlight sponsors, strategic partners, and vendors instead of just putting them in a program, which is really important.
Yeah. I think, I think the days of just adding a logo to a program or to your slides that you show pre-event, while that's good, that's nice recognition, that's not quite building a long-term partnership. So that's why I love about that example about Palm Health. It takes it one step further. So it's mutual value. And that's one of the things that I always stress to folks when they're thinking about potential sponsors. As you're building out a sponsor list, think about your donors, your attendees, the community that you serve, and think about what value, what services they utilize, what services they could utilize, and then think about how you can bring those two sides together. Sure. So that's what I love about that example is that's a perfect example of adding value past just logo recognition.
That's so true. And when you do it that way, you're not only adding value to the partners, the sponsors, but you're adding value to attendees. I became a client of Palm Health because I didn't even know it existed, and just by being there and walking through the space and being sort of swooned and sold on what they did, I was like, yeah, absolutely, I can get behind this. And that wouldn't have happened had we not been doing those, those various tours of the facility, which is just anyway, yeah. Okay, technology in the room. So we don't think of things here at Utopia through the lens of a traditional production company that you might be familiar with. And so I think what nonprofits have come to love about working, with our group is that you're hiring a family, partners, fundraisers, event planners, a video production team, an entertainment team, and a production company all in one. And oftentimes, I think a lot of nonprofits have experience in walking into a hotel and seeing a production group that's standing in the back of the room that shows up 30 minutes before the event, and they're just Saturday's event. They're looking at the nonprofit and they don't really know. And so for us, there is so much confidence and energy that is built up beforehand that really plays into the success of the event. And so I was recently an attendee at another event, and I know these people, I give to their organization, and I saw what happened, and there was a failure on the production side. And the perception among the attendees was they didn't plan. The Fun to Need video wouldn't play. And when it did play, the people in the front were blasted, and us friends in the back couldn't hear. And great production is just expected. Like, everybody expects flawless production, and people only take notice when it's not. And oftentimes, people don't really know what goes into producing and executing a flawless event from a production standpoint. And so to prevent issues from happening, at least with our clients, we got to start that planning process 6 months prior to the event. Introducing clients to their project manager that builds a relationship with them, bringing Jarel on board and having you talk through the vision of the perfect attendee experience and enrolling people, going through the run of show, setting up site visits, creating that perfect attendee experience, and that's what makes for a successful event. I just think about the experiences that we had this past weekend where we walked into a venue at 9 a.m. and the event organizers were frantic because they were trying to put out fires, and we walked up to them, put our arms around them and said, "We've got this. It's all good." And they were just like this sigh of relief that they were in good hands and that they could do what they needed to do, which was get the venue all dressed up, and they're doing the centerpieces and everything, right? And they knew they were in good hands, but that was because we had really listened to each other and we heard each other. We sourced a solution, and the outcome of that event, their goal was $150,000, and they raised $210,000. So energy around a cause and having relationships for us on the production side is really important, so we're all aligned with our partners because the clients feel that, our team feels that, attendees and sponsors feel that, and that leads to better outcomes and more money raised. Technology, also one of the things that we love to see at events now are roaming cameras to make your event look like a TV production. We've got a couple examples of that on the PDF. And then streaming and hybrid. I pulled a really interesting stat off of Google that 70% more money raised with organizations that offered a streaming option in 2021. I thought that was really interesting because what that is saying is it's saying that we are inclusive. We're not excluding anybody, and that's really important for this new generation who, I think a lot of us feel like there's just not enough time in the day, and we're not gonna go to, an event a weekend. We wanna give, we wanna be philanthropic, right? I know you do, yeah. I do. But making your events accessible and offering a streaming option, not doing that is no longer an option. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I definitely agree because even though things are beginning to open up again, we are having in-person events again, I don't think it's wise for organizations to move away from the hybrid model because just like you said, everybody's busy these days. So we are going to prioritize things, and I think we are prioritizing things in a different way than we did pre-pandemic. So things like these galas, I still want to attend, you still want to attend, but instead of losing an entire evening, an entire afternoon, now we can just attend this hybrid event virtually, log on, 3 hours, 3 hours, we're done. We can still support the organization, we can still connect and engage with them. So I definitely agree.
And we could bring our families into the experience.
That's right.
We've had so many nonprofits reach out that are so grateful that they're actually able to, they can't bring their kids to an event in a ballroom because there's alcohol, there's partying, they don't want their kids there. But if you're streaming, you can actually involve your kids in philanthropy at home from the family room, which is super cool.
Yeah, how cool is that? You could put it up on the big screen, you can have some dinner ready to go. So it just changes the experience in a way that we haven't experienced pre-pandemic.
Absolutely. A couple more things on how to nail your tech at your event. Think about doing surveys. So one of the things we did at this last weekend's event, we had QR codes for the Greater Giving app on the tables, right in front of everybody in their place settings. So they could take their phones, scan the QR code, and they're right on your giving website, and they're sifting through all the live auction items, the silent auction items. That's huge. So think about putting QR codes. Spend a couple $100 and put a QR code in front of every single individual at your event. And then what we do too on the stream is we bring the QR code up on the screen during the pre-event piece so that everybody at home can also log in and access that as well. So we get them excited about the different items. You can also consider putting surveys on your table and ask questions like, people would scan the survey and you can ask a question like, hey, can our fundraising director, our director of development or executive director reach out to you next week? We want this to be the best event you've ever been to, and we can only do that with your feedback. And they say yes, and you're like, great. What's your preferred method of communication? Maybe you ask them another question, take it a step further, and you're like, do you want to come to one of our volunteering opportunities? We talk about the importance of getting people enrolled in small e-events and bringing the family out to these non-fundraising events. throughout the year. So maybe you enroll them in a volunteering opportunity with their family, and you're like, you want, yeah, absolutely. Well, how do we reach out to you? And they give you their phone number right there on the spot. So you're getting active data at your event because it's so much easier to do it there in a controlled setting than it is trying to reach out to them after the event. Good luck, right? We all go back to our lives, and it's, everyone's getting emails and texts and phone calls all the time. So that just makes it really hard to do.
Yeah, and it's striking while the iron is hot and they are at their peak interest level. If you get them in that moment, I've had so much luck with just that strategy, connecting and engaging with donors and potential donors directly at the event through those types of methods. It is a million times easier, you're right, to get a hold of people then than it is after the event with like a follow-up email. Sometimes you have to do that. I'm not saying we abandoned that 100%, but it is much easier to get that info and capture that data before they even leave that night.
Absolutely. And last but not least on the during event is moving. We talked about this a little bit earlier when we introduced the concept of how to create a really good experience. And it's moving your audience from passive to active. And we think about how do we create an environment which is enriching, where people feel united and know they're gathering for a higher purpose. And one example of how we recently did this was we went to a nonprofit group. We were producing an event for an organization down in Atlanta, and we said, hey, we think it'd be really special to bring the recipients into the room the night of your event. Can we maybe find 1, 2, 3 recipients to just sort of mingle, and then they can, take off? And they said, well, love the idea. Challenge is our recipients are in Nepal. And so we said, great, we're gonna call a production company in Nepal, and we worked with a group out there, and we brought the recipients into the room digitally during the event. And the donors were asking them questions. We had, little iPads at the tables. We brought them up on the projector screens. For virtual attendees, we put them in breakout rooms, and they were able to communicate with these Nepal recipients. And there was one little boy who was 11, 12, 13 years old who had 5 siblings around him, his little baby sister in his arms. And one of the donors said, what does this mean to you? And he just started bawling. And he said, it's everything. You're providing water for us. You're providing food for us. We have clothing because of you all. And you're really making a huge impact on my family. And so we think about how do we get people grounded in that feeling of unity, that their contribution matters. And we do that through actually letting them feel and see the tangible results of what they're creating together that night. And do you think those donors gave more that night?
Of course they did.
Absolutely. One other way that you might consider taking people from passive to active is writing letters. So I was an attendee at a recent event, and it was for the Front Row Foundation, which is a wish organization that grants those that are terminally ill the front row live event experience of their dreams. There's this little story of Hannah. They play a video, and all she wants is health. She's 12 years old, and she realizes she's terminally ill, and she says, I'm gonna die soon. And that just ripped my heart out. And the CEO of the Front Row Foundation, after this video played, came up and he said, all Hannah wants is to go to a Taylor Swift concert before she passes away. And she was really sick. She was in the hospital going through chemo treatments and radiation. And in 60 seconds, we, as a room, 150 of us raised $15,000 for Hannah. And we all wrote her letters. And the CEO said, hey, just take a moment. We want everyone here in the room just to write letters to Hannah. Letters of encouragement, letters of love, letters of endearment. Just tell her how much you care about her from what you just saw with her story. And we all did. And then 60 days later, I got a video from the front row with Hannah reading our letters and then actually meeting Taylor Swift backstage at the concert. And at the end of the video, it said Hannah passed away on such and such a date, which was 2 weeks after she had that Taylor Swift experience. But we were able to make her dream come true, and I still remember that 6 years later. And so just writing the letter to recipients, it just takes those walls down, right? Those walls of, we come into events guarded because sometimes we don't know anyone in a room of 300 strangers. And all of a sudden we just all become best friends because we're working on something collectively.
I think the question that you ask there with your individual events, how do we build community? Because that's exactly what happened through that letter writing. You built a community, and together you solved a problem.
Right. And it was, it was a beautiful experience. Beautiful experience. And yeah, so anyway, just some things to consider for the during event process and how to make it really meaningful and really impactful and to be different. You know, no longer are people coming to the events, or we always talk about the rubber chicken. You know, people aren't going for the chicken. We've got to find ways to build common purpose and to build community. That's it for during event. And I know, Tracy, we have like just a little bit that Jarel wants to cover on post-event. You think we could go for maybe like another 3 or so minutes and then open it up for questions?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Wonderful. Jarel, this is all you, my friend, because you have so much experience in the fundraising world. And I love your take on post-event. Your take on post-event is amazing.
Yeah.
So the event's done. Is it over? Like, what happens now? Saturday, you know, we're like, okay, cool. We're going to go home now and just relax, right?
Absolutely not. The work is just beginning, actually. As soon as your event is done, I know, I recall, gosh, this spring when I had our big fundraiser that you all produced for us, and it was great. I had a call, an email actually, come in on Sunday evening where our board chair was like, "You're taking the day off tomorrow, right? Don't come in." And I said, "No, this is the biggest day of the year for me," because what I did, what you described earlier, picked up the phone. So I picked up the phone and I started from the top and worked my way all the way down that sponsor list. So I had some talking points ready to go. And if I didn't reach them, I left them a voicemail with those talking points. But if I did talk to them, it was a brief call just to say, "Thank you. With your support, we did X, Y, Z." You know, and I was able to tell them exactly how their support impacted our organization. So, you know, I just think about ways that we can differentiate ourselves from every other nonprofit and every other gala and event that they might sponsor. How can we stand out? And it's in that thank you follow-up. It's individualized and it feels authentic because it is authentic.
Where do you see the most missed opportunities in post-event follow-up?
I think it's in not segmenting your donors, not to sound like a broken record, but you know, I think you have a very distinct group of donors and attendees. So let's say, you know, you have folks who supported the live auction. Let's send them very specific email about supporting the live auction. We have folks who have never engaged with the organization outside of this event. Well, let me send you an email with ways that detail exactly how you can get engaged with our organization, whether it be through volunteering, coming for a tour, supporting us at a higher level, potentially. You know, so just segmenting those donors, those attendees, and really being thoughtful about how we communicate with them moving forward.
Sure. Jarel, actually, I have another question because you just gave me a thought there. So a lot of our nonprofits all over the country are really seeing this analog donor phasing out. So the analog is just a fancy way of saying the baby boomer, those that remember a time before the internet. And I'm just at the cusp there. I sort of remember do you remember AOL, like the dial-up?
Oh, I do. I lived AOL.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Like log in and see what your friends are doing after school.
Yeah,
so I remember that time, but some people don't. And this new consumer, the millennial, the Gen X, the Gen Y, the Gen Z, they're phasing in. And these people don't have enough time in the day. And so like we talked about earlier, they're not going to attend a 4-hour weekend event every weekend because they don't want to give up their weekends. There's other things that they want to prioritize. What do you see as the biggest opportunities to engage this new digital consumer? How do we do that?
I love the hybrid event idea. You know, I've had a couple of them so far since the pandemic has started personally for my organizations, but then also have supported several other organizations that have had hybrid events. So when I think about a hybrid event, there's value on the night of the event, but there's value after the event as well. Because now I have material that I can chop up and I can provide content from that event throughout the year through several different channels, whether it be an email to folks who didn't attend the event, whether it is from our social media. We could pop some examples and highlights of the event from there. So it's endless content generated from that sole night. So I love it for so many reasons.
That's awesome. Any last words on Postevent?
Gosh, I think, as soon as the event is over, it's time to start thinking about next year. And part of that conversation that you might have with sponsors, we'd love to have you back next year. So I'll reach out in 3 months, 4 months, and we'll talk again about how you might be involved. So it lays the groundwork and it gets them already thinking about next year's event, because you just have a very successful event. It's still fresh on their mind. You will remain a line item for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Tracy, that's a wrap.
Oh, wow. So much great stuff. I'm just going to give her back on. Awesome. Well, if you have any questions for the team at Utopia, we'd love to take them now in our time that we have remaining in our hour. But like Joey mentioned, they're going to send me a bunch of resources and materials, and I will be sending all of those out to you as quickly as we can over the next couple of days once I have all of those assets. But if you have a question that you would like to ask, please jump into that question section of the GoToWebinar toolbar, and we will get that asked of our presenters in just a moment. But I guess I'm curious to know, Joey, what's been in the past 18 months, what's been for you guys with your productions? What's been the highlight? Is there a real outstanding moment as you guys all made this transition to virtual events and hybrid events?
I think it's really just being a source of light and confidence for other people trying to figure this out. I think there was a time of widespread fear and scarcity where we're fielding a lot of phone calls from our nonprofit clients, 18 months ago, and they're trying to figure out how are we going to produce our largest annual fundraisers when we can't gather together in person. And so for us, it's when there's a problem, we as a team, we just try and crowdsource actionable solutions and then figure it out and problem solve for nonprofits, because to me and to us, success is really about doing the work in the world that matters. And I could think of nobody else that I'd want to spend time with and work hard for than nonprofits that are changing this country and changing the world. So that's really been a highlight, for us here, is how can we just serve and help and add value to more people that are just trying to figure it all out.
Definitely. All right, we had a question from Glenn. Glenn wants to know, if you're a smaller event not ready for a big show and production like you've described, do you have any advice on partnering with a larger organization? How do you know when you're big enough to justify a full-blown hybrid event? We're a single school supporting organization, but operate in the same universe as a foundation for the entire 15 to 16 school district.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, Glenn, great question. And for me, I've worked with a lot of smaller nonprofits, and I think, it's always about, you are always ready for that hybrid event, regardless, for the reasons that I just talked about. So you have content for the rest of the year outside from that event itself. So I think, one of the things that we always, and I stress for folks to not get caught up in, is comparing ourselves to other nonprofits and other events. I've been at both ends of the spectrum, both with the very large productions where we are $10,000 a ticket for our gala. I've been at the other end where we are struggling to get 50 people in the door as well. But, you can't really compare those two. I will say we could have used a hybrid event at both of those organizations. And it's all in the strategy and being very, very intentional about your outcomes. So that pre-event conversation that Joey is talking about, where you really dig deep into what are you looking to get from this event, I think that will help you build your strategy for how we have the most successful hybrid event possible.
Glenn, does that, it's a great question.
That
really
is,
a great
yeah,
question.
yeah.
Does that help Glenn, if you want to just let us know, if you want us to expand on anything further, happy to do it.
Yeah.
No, I think that was great. Glenn said that was a perfect translation, and the answer worked.
Fantastic.
Great.
Awesome.
And Marie says, by the way, I consider myself lucky if I come up with one useful idea. Thank you for providing that to me. So you're welcome, Marie.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. We appreciate you.
And
I get so uncomfortable when I talk that much in such a short window. Like talking straight for 30 minutes is
it's a lot.
That's a lot.
Very intense.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was really great. Brenda said, talk about Giving Tuesday campaigns. Well, I will talk about Giving Tuesday for just a second. That is coming out November 30th, Giving Day here in the United States and all over the world. We are very actively promoting Giving Tuesday, as well as year-end giving here at Creative Giving. You can use our tools to create a great front-to-back campaign. We have an awesome feature, Text to Donate, which was released this spring that you can use for your Giving Tuesday campaign. We have tons of resources on our website. I don't know, Joey, if you guys have anything you want to touch on in terms of year-end giving or Giving Tuesday?
Yeah, I think the main thing is making it fun. So the thing about Giving Tuesday, there are so many organizations that will bombard, your donors will receive a lot of email and a lot of communications that day. So I think, one strategy that I've utilized is laying the groundwork before that day, where much in the same sense as for a gala, I want to have a lot of that money raised before I even get in the door for the day of the event. You can use that type of strategy on Giving Tuesday, but like you said, Greater Giving has wonderful tools that can help you. But yeah, I've always looked at making it as fun as possible for our volunteers, our board members that are going to help us solicit gifts that day.
Sure.
Actually, one more thing, right quick, an example of how we made it fun. So this past year, last year's Giving Tuesday, we actually had a call-a-thon that we built into the day as well. All of our board members came into the office, and we had a boardroom filled with phones, and we made it really fun and festive, had music going. I had dinner catered for all of our board members, but we called our networks, and we also had the line open that we promoted online, so people could call in and make a gift. So I had a bell that our board members would come, and they would ring at the front of the room every time a gift came in. So it built that excitement. Whenever you would see someone stand up, it's like the expectation, they're going to announce another big gift. They hit it, and then we had a running total on a big screen at the front of the room. So I think about making it fun, and I think that pays off with your board members and volunteers.
I love that idea. And just to piggyback off of that story, we worked with an organization, and we filmed a video of a variety of their different donors. Why do we give? We give for this reason. We give for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. And it was all the different impact stories of just quick hit, shares of why they give back to this organization. And then we utilized the Greater Giving platform, the text to give piece, and we sent it out to everybody. And they pulled it up on their phones. And it's just that little subliminal hit where you're not directly soliciting and asking for money, but you're just sort of reinforcing that, hey, if any of these reasons speak to you, you might want to consider giving too.
Love it.
Outstanding. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, and we are just now at the top of the hour, so you managed to squeeze all of that amazing content.
Wow, we did it.
We sure did. In fact, we started a little late. So, outstanding. All right. Well, like I mentioned, today's session has been recorded. Joey and the team at Utopia, they are videoing everything for us, and will be sending me a much nicer file that we'll be sharing with you all as an on-demand version. You'll get an email of that, along with all of the great resources that Joey has mentioned, lots of videos and other things coming your way over the next couple of days. But I want to say a huge thank you, Joey and the team at Utopia, for all of these great tips, resources, and tools as we look ahead into planning in 2022 and getting fueled up for your next fundraising event. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks to all of you for joining.